Welcome to an SAT cram session on YouTube. I'm going to give you guys 5 quick tips for your SAT if you're taking the SAT soon, focused on the reading and writing section. My first tip is a grammar tip, is number 1, remove comma sandwiches and any phrases you don't need. So when you're trying to figure out the grammar of a sentence, whether it's subject-verb agreement, whether it's pronouns, whether it's some other kind of sentence structure question on the SAT, a good thing to do is to get rid of or ignore phrases and clauses you don't need. So here, I'm going to read the second sentence where my sentence is. These spherical bits of glass form when asteroids collide with the planet, ejecting bits of molten rock into the atmosphere that, and I can hear that kind of dangle, after cooling and solidifying into glass. And here I have this comma sandwich that I don't really need, and that was dangling, and I feel like it needs something. So I'm going to keep reading. Blank back onto Mars' surface. I really want to get from here to this blank. So if something's getting in the way of my blank, I want to get rid of it so I can hear with my ear better what should be there or what's going on. The other thing I can get rid of is like prepositional phrases of glass. I can even get rid of clauses. When asteroids collide with the planet, I don't actually even need this whole dependent clause. Ejecting bits of molten rock into the atmosphere, right? These spherical bits form ejecting bits that to rain back, that raining back, that having rained, or that rain back onto Mars' surface. And we can hear really easily it's going to be D. So get rid of intervening phrases if they're getting in the way of matching things up. Get rid of unnecessary prepositional phrases. You can even get rid of unnecessary clauses. If it helps you get down to that bare bones sentence, get down to that bare bones sentence, then you're going to be able to figure out what the answer is. Tip number 1. Tip number 2. Subjects doing the action come after a comma in opening phrases. This is essentially modifiers. If you've ever done a lesson on modifiers, if you're really an SAT nerd, if you're like, Brooke, I have never studied for this thing at all, you are my teacher. Welcome. I love this tip because it's super fast, super easy. Here's the basic gist of it. If you see a word ending in ed, ing, any kind of participle, what are participles? Those are the words that we use with helping verbs. Like I was going to the store. Going, ing, is a participle, right? She is swimming in the lake. Is swimming, right? We pair it with is. Am, is, are, was, were, be, being, been. Those are our helping verbs. We pair it with this form, but we can also use this form on its own. And when we do that, we call it a participle and we make it into what's called participial phrases. So these opening phrases that have these verby kind of words that don't have a subject attached to them. When you have that situation, whoever or whatever is doing that action or described by that action needs to come after the comma. Let me show you because it's a little bit hard to understand when I describe it. Known as Earth's living skin. So what is known as Earth's living skin? She is known, right? Known is our past participle. Biocrusts are what's known as Earth's living skin. So you see how it comes right after the comma. Well, we're going to do the same with the next sentence. Fortifying soil and arid ecosystems against erosion blank. Whoever or whatever is fortifying the soil, that means building up, strengthening that soil. What can do that? Can a recent study's estimate fortify soil? No. An estimated 60% reduction? No. These crusts, yes, the biocrusts, the living skin, these are what is fortifying soil in arid ecosystems, right? So they are correct. A recent study, no. You can see how fast and easy these questions are if you just know this rule. Whoever or whatever is doing that action-y participle word at the beginning, opening phrase, has to come after the comma. Tip number 3, perfect answer first. This is probably the number 1 tip that I give to students. It's probably in its own video, but it deserves to be in this video too. Here's the trick, guys. Don't treat this like a multiple choice test. Treat it like it's open answer. And here's something magical that's going to happen. Your brain is going to start working harder. When your brain works harder, you get smarter, you put better answer choices. Linguist Deborah Tannen has cautioned against framing contentious issues in terms of 2 highly competitive perspectives, such as pro versus con. Don't do that. According to Tannen, this debate-driven approach can strip issues of their complexity and when used in front of an audience can be less informative than the presentation of multiple perspectives in a non-competitive format. So essentially, key idea is it's less informative to debate than to approach things with multiple perspectives in a non-competitive format. To test Tannen's hypothesis, students conducted a study in which they showed participants one of 3 different versions of a local news commentary about the same issue. Each version featured, we got 3 options here, a debate between 2 commentators. Okay, so we know that's going to be bad and not informative, right? With opposing views, a panel of 3 commentators with various views. This is going to be good and informative, or a single commentator. I have no idea what that's going to be. It's out of scope. Which finding from the student study, if true, would most strongly support Tannen's hypothesis? So I'm going to do this question before I look down. I'm going to figure out what the answer is, or what it should be, or what it should probably look like. To support Tannen's hypothesis, her hypothesis is debate is less informative than a panel of 3 or more people who are just getting along, right? So this is more informative than this guy. I have no idea about that single commentator. That's just out of left field. I'm going to ignore it for now. On average, participants perceived commentators in the debate as more knowledgeable about the issue than commentators. So that's just weird. One, it's not focusing on whether it's informative to the people watching the debate, but also it's saying that the debate is more knowledgeable in some way, which is the opposite of the vibe. It's less informative, right? Debate-driven approach is less informative. On average, participants perceive commentators in the panel as more knowledgeable about the issues than the single commentator. Again, this is out of scope. She never mentions the single commentator in her hypothesis. I can't pick B. C, on average, participants who watched the panel correctly answered more questions about the issue. They correctly answered questions. That means it was informative, right? Than those who watched the debate or the single commentator did. I don't really know what to make about the single commentator, but than those who watched the debate, this totally clocks, you guys, right? The panel is going to be the most informative. We're going to be smarter than if we watched the debate, and I'm going to answer more questions correctly, right? Because I got more information. D, on average, participants who watched the single commentator correctly answered more questions about the issue than those who watched the debate did. Again, this is comparing single commentator to debate. That's not the scope of her hypothesis. Her hypothesis is panel versus debate. That's it. So I'm going to ignore that third piece. C is the answer. Perfect answer first. Boom. I know what I'm looking for. I can knock it out fast. Tip number 4, avoid extremes unless they are well supported. Most of the time on the SAT, extreme answer choices are dodgy. They're sus. They're sussy, as my 8-year-old would say. Let's try it. One theory behind human bipedalism speculates that it originated in a mostly ground-based ancestor that practiced 4-legged knuckle walking, like chimpanzees and gorillas do today, and eventually evolved into moving upright on 2 legs. But recently, researchers observed orangutans, another relative of humans, standing on 2 legs on tree branches and using their arms for balance while they reached for fruits. These observations may suggest that, actually, maybe it wasn't knuckles up, maybe it was trees down. Bipedalism evolved because it was advantageous to a tree-dwelling ancestor. Maybe, right? It may suggest, possibly, and this is in scope. Bipedalism must have evolved simultaneously with knuckle walking and tree climbing. That means we evolved tree climbing, we evolved knuckle walking, and we evolved human bipedalism all at the same time. That is really weird because evolution isn't about all at the same time, but must have evolved is also weirdly strong. So my trigger, my SAT probably wrong trigger is going off. Extremes don't make answer choices wrong, but they tend to be part of answer choices that are dodgy. So I'm just telling your little alert system to be wary of them. That's not the reason that this is wrong. The reason this is wrong really is the word simultaneously, because evolution isn't about simultaneously. It's about growing into that, right? Those extreme words, dodgy, dodgy. Moving between the ground and the trees would have been difficult without bipedalism. A knuckle-walking human ancestor could have easily moved bipedally in trees. This is also really weird. Like throwing these guys into the tree, this is just very assumptive, and like, how would I know that they would easily move? That's just an assumption. It's too extreme. So I can get rid of those. And then 2, this idea that it would have been difficult. This is an inference. We don't want to infer. And that brings me to tip number 5. Don't make crap up, you guys. Do not infer. Do not bring in ideas that there's no support for. Everything on the SAT has to be supported by the text. So tip number 5, do not infer. Paraphrase, but don't make things up. Okay? Algae living within the tissues of corals play a critical role in keeping corals and in the marine ecosystems they are part of thriving. Some coral species appear brown in color when they're healthy due to the algae colonies living in their tissues. In the event of an environmental stressor, the algae can die or be expelled, causing the corals to appear white. So I'm going to start tracking this. We have an environmental stressor, the brown algae die, they turn white. To recover the algae, the bleached corals then begin to produce bright colors. Then they're like, I'm going to be hot pink, and block some intense sunlight to encourage the light-sensitive algae to recolonize the corals. We want them to come back. So I'm going to turn bright pink to be like, hey, I'll protect you from the sun. What does the text most strongly suggest about corals that produce bright colors? They're trying to woo the algae back to them. That's my perfect answer. It's probably not going to be here. These corals have likely been subjected to stressful environmental conditions. Well, this was definitely in the passage. It's right here, and that's part of the domino effect, right? They're brown, and then they have environmental stressor, then they turn white, and the algae leave. Then they turn colored to try to get the algae back. So this is part of the chain, it's possible. These corals are likely more vulnerable to exposure from intense sunlight than white corals are. I can't make things up, you guys. How are they more vulnerable to exposure from intense sunlight? It says they block intense sunlight. That doesn't seem like they're vulnerable to it. That like doesn't really track. I can't like infer something super random. There's no evidence. If anything, there's evidence against that. It says they block the sunlight, not they're more vulnerable to it. These corals likely recovered from an environmental event without the assistance of algal colonies. Again, this would be an inference. I have no idea whether they can recover without the algae. All it says is that they want the algae back. They want to recover the algae so that they become healthy again, right? So I don't know how they recover without the algae. It's an inference. It's just not here, you guys. Don't make things up. These corals are more likely to survive without algae colonies than brown corals are. So again, comparisons are another way that the College Board tries to get you to infer or make things up that aren't supported by the passage. These corals are more likely to survive without algal colonies. So they don't have them right now, but I don't know if they're likely to survive or not than brown corals are. Does that mean brown corals without the algal colonies? But aren't these just the brown corals like adapted? And this is just like a weird comparison. You can't infer comparisons. You can't make things up when it comes to comparisons. Don't do it. And that's how we get to answer choice A. So don't infer, don't make things up, paraphrase. See what makes sense, see what's supported by the passage. It's got to be supported by the passage. If it's coming out of left field, if it's coming out of weird places, if it's weird comparisons that really aren't on the page, don't pick it. And you will be better off. If you want more awesome tips like this, we have a whole 2-hour super seminar where I have tips for high scores. You can buy a recording if we already did the live class, or you can do the live class, SupertutorTV.com. We also have a private tutoring, a cool online course. We also have a tutor mode where tutors can run whole group classes. You can also assign assignments to individual students. If tutors get 3 students to sign up, the tutor account is free. Check it out at supertutortv.com/educators. Private tutoring group classes. We got it for the SAT. Let's do this, everybody. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet. Find us on TikTok, and we'll see you guys next time.